Hello everyone and welcome to Sunburned Albino lists 8 ways Fire Emblem as a franchise could improve based on my experience having played 10 of them. This is a series whose quality is all over the place, though never really dipping below a certain threshold of still being at least decent as far as main titles that have come to the West are concerned. Your mileage may vary. Fire Emblem isn't afraid to iterate and experiment, which is good. When a new game gets announced, you never know exactly what you're going to get, and it's exciting as long as it's not a lame spinoff. But without further preamble, let's just get into the deets in no order of importance. Number 1. Custom difficulty options. Most Fire Emblem games have normal mode, hard, and more recently maddening or some kind of super hard difficulty, but these difficulties all come with their own rigid circumstances and settings, and I often find myself looking for an experience that's more in the middle of some of them. Hard mode has the extra enemies with slightly better stats and formations I like, but then also usually neuters XP gain. Generally, I want normal mode's XP with hard mode's everything else, and I think some toggleable options to adjust difficulty would be nice, like maybe you want enemies to have maddening mode's better weapons and unique skills and perks, but their stats to be toned down closer to hard or normal. You could also put certain QOL toggles in the modifier options, like the ability to adjust merchant prices or to be able to turn weapon durability on or off. These go a long way towards creating experiences that can cater to as many types of players as possible, and maybe you'll even get more fans out of it. Number 2. Full character creation or customizable mercenaries. I'll explain the second part first. If you've played Unicorn Overlord, which is a great tactical RPG that came out back in January that scratches many of the same itches as Fire Emblem despite some RTS and auto battle mechanics, then you know they've got this mercenary system where you can hire mercenaries of different classes, customize and name them, and then just have them permanently in your squad. Since that game has a static protagonist, this is a great way to still insert a bit of yourself into the story. The mercs don't get involved in the narrative at all, but being able to deploy a character named after you or designed by you makes you feel like you're more actively participating in what's happening. I've been missing that out of the last couple Fire Emblems. 3 Houses and Engage only let you pick between male or female. It's time to go beyond even what Awakening or Fates allowed and get a real range of creation tools out here. More faces, more hairstyles and colors, an adjustable build, and a range of stat growth points to allocate Elden Ring style would be super cool, like being able to pick from a few classes right from the beginning and then being able to mess with the growth percents within each class based on what you want to prioritize or ignore. Byleth was a pretty good blank slate in 3 Houses. I must have built her 9 different ways in all my playthroughs, but she still had her preferences and wasn't well suited to magic even if you built her as a mage, so it would be nice to be able to choose those preferences from the outset. Number 3. Mandatory New Game Plus and Renown rewards. If you've heard me talk about Fire Emblem before, you know that I think New Game Plus is absolutely essential to the replayability of these games. Even the smallest additions, like class bans and Path of Radiance, or the basic reward lists from Awakening give you that incentive to replay and earn stuff that makes subsequent playthroughs better. 3 Houses absolutely nailed this assignment, with Renown letting you unlock characters from other houses early, or increasing their weapon levels or your professor rank, or using it to buy rare weapons. That, combined with the multiple branching paths and different houses to pick and class flexibility, made the game a goddamn juggernaut of variety that I spent at least 700 hours playing. Then Engage comes out, introduces this new bond ring system where you use points earned from wearing them in battle to learn skills from the rings to equip to your characters, and you can cross-pollinate with different rings on the same character to create a powerhouse of perk synergy. A mechanic tailor-made to be enhanced by New Game Plus with stuff carrying over, and it's nowhere to be found. No New Game Plus killed Fire Emblem Engage. I played it once, enjoyed the single playthrough while lamenting what could have been, and never touched it again. Game has the best combat of any Fire Emblem, and it straight up doesn't matter. Nothing carries over into subsequent files, so there's no reason to get super min-maxy with the systems, because by the time you've done enough to create the Goliath unit of your dreams, you've got 2 chapters of the game left to use them in. If they added New Game Plus to Engage right now, I would go sink 200 hours into it. No questions asked. I can't believe they did all this paid DLC, which included some base game updates as it was rolling out bit by bit, and none of it was New Game Plus. I feel like I'm trapped in a fever dream, because how do they not recognize the biggest missed opportunity of all time? If the next Fire Emblem doesn't have New Game Plus, it'll be my 13th reason. Number 4. More weapon types plus guns? Guns is a question mark. By guns, I pretty much just mean pistols, like old-timey revolvers. I mentioned Unicorn Overlord again, but that game retains the medieval time period, while also having some shooter action in there, and I think it fits. It's medieval, but it's also a fantasy setting, with dragons, bunny ladies, necromancers, etc., so I think a fantasy version of a gun would still work. You can have different ammo types, like armor-piercing rounds against knights or magic bullets and whatnot, and not just guns, but but there's plenty more melee weaponry Fire Emblem could dip into, again with some Elden Ring inspiration. You could add flails, scythes, twin blades, whips, great clubs, you name it, along with some extra classes that specialize in them. Number 5, a true evil/villain narrative path. Fate kinda tries to do this by letting you side with Nor, whose king is responsible for all the villainy going on, but your character is still a good guy who eventually defeats him from within anyway, so you're arriving at the same conclusion. Similar thing with Radiant Dawn when you can play as the Dian squad. This is kinda like me wanting a Pokemon game where I can join Team Rocket, which I do, but I think if you made a Fire Emblem story with a strictly good and evil path, I don't think that would be a cliche in this series. Other games have done it kind of disingenuously, like Infamous, but I think it would be a breath of fresh air for something like Fire Emblem, which has repeatedly told stories about how your character is supposed to be evil, but then you overcome it like Awakening Fates and Engage do. Like, stop teasing me already, just let me be evil. You want me to be almost evil so bad, just give me the rest of that evil juice so I can chug it. You might say the Black Eagles route of 3 houses is kind of an evil route, and it's probably the closest thing we have, but if you go that route, the story sort of automatically changes facts and circumstances to suit your new narrative so you can still believe it's righteous. Like Rhea turns into a raging psycho and starts doing evil shit of her own, so it flips back to you being the good guys once again, just on the other side of the chessboard. Getting to fight your previous classmates and feeling bad about killing them is delightful, though. I want more inner emotional conflict in my story. Number 6, more hard/secret objectives during missions. I miss the old Fire Emblem days where secret shops were hidden in a conspicuously placed forest tile, or characters could be recruited in non-obvious ways. As for the harder objectives, I don't necessarily want the chapters themselves to be harder to complete, although go ahead if it means I have to think a little harder, but I'm talking about micro-objectives within the missions too. I miss when you had to think carefully about positioning and which units to take in order to reach a village before a bandit destroyed it, or a chest before a thief absconded with the goods, you know? Like stuff where you needed to have a good flyer immediately book it to a location to get something extra. It doesn't have to just be that. I also like how you can only recruit Donald in his paralogue in Awakening if he levels up during the mission, or else he goes back to being a farmer. Stuff like that feels dynamic and urgent. You could even have a few challenges listed for each mission, like kill 3 enemy units with an archer, or complete the mission without using vulneraries, and then if you did them, you'd get rewards for that, either extra renown or something more tangible. As a knight, enter combat 5 times without taking damage, and then you do it and they give you a Draco Shield at the end. That sounds cool to me, man. Some overarching challenges too may be for renown, like 50 lance kills across the whole campaign, etc. I think there's real potential there. Number 7, more fleshed out, cozy game mechanics between missions. I didn't know how else to put that. I basically want the hub areas they've started having you go to between missions to be like a full-fledged Animal Crossing situation. They dipped their toe into it with Fate's castle thing, but made it so bare bones it might as well have not been there. Then they gave you the 3 Houses Academy, which technically had activities of gardening and fishing and character bonding and whatnot, but not super involved. Like, every mechanic there was basic. The fishing sucked, the gardening was worth doing, but basic, and you pretty much only ran around the academy to give flowers to randos and do the bounty board stuff. Engage stripped the hub area down so hard that it made the entire thing pointless. Almost no utility to be had. That place was top to bottom garbage. So we need an overhaul in the form of an actual village to build, with materials to gather, crops to plant and harvest, meals to cook, relationship building, character quests to undertake, facilities to unlock, and a house of our own to decorate. It should either be that deep or not exist at all, which would also be fine, but if they're gonna do it, I think it should be fully realized. Disney Dreamlight Valley is another good example to draw from. Imagine building each of your units their own house and seeing how they decorate it, and building extra support with them that way could really help you get more invested in the characters. Number 8, co-op? This is something I think they could implement in a basic sense. I look at Bloons Tower Defense co-op and see the same missions as solo, but with a partner to control their own side of things. You could have drop-in, drop-out co-op and divvy up control of your units between player 1 and 2 and either start in the same spot or give player 2 a starting zone somewhere else. Or you could be more ambitious and have a more dedicated system where player 2 can use their own units that they've leveled up, that function like Einherjar, or however you pronounce that, clones that have an in-world explanation for existing. Then you could either make the maps bigger and have more large-scale assaults with both players taking the same number of units into battle, or you could keep the unit cap the same and split it so each player fills half. You'd be able to work with less units each, but in a dedicated co-op playthrough that you're committed to playing all the way through together, I still see that being super fun, and far preferable to the Engage thing, where they just had you drop in and out of random turns in multiplayer boards. But that's going to do it for this list. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos until your durability breaks, and I'll see you guys next time.